Hi, my name is Antonio Gabriel, and I first experienced homelessness probably around 7 years ago. Um, I am a single father. My son was born in the system, so it took me around 2 years to get custody of him. So once I got custody of him, everything was okay. But a single father, no child care, and as a skilled painter, that was my job. Now, I lost my transportation. So, because of losing my transportation, I couldn't get to work and we began experiencing homelessness. So, it was very challenging just trying to be, a responsible dad. So, in the beginning process, I went to I don't know how many shelters, and no shelter could help with the situation that I had. It was either I would have to put my son in a different shelter, and I would have to go to the men's shelter. So we would be split apart. Um, Before it was just me and my son, I was also married, and we were also experiencing homelessness. And still, again, there was no shelter that had room for a family. So, any shelter that I went to, I mean, there was no help because they didn't have programs for families, they didn't have programs for single fathers. Um, so I think it was in 2018, there was 1.5 million single fathers who were currently homeless, which makes it about 2.5 to 3 million children who are also homeless. Um, so during this time of me just trying to find a place or just walking the streets, you also meet other homeless families. I mean, there were families at gas stations just wrapped up in the hotel blankets because, that's all they had. There's 60 families that shows up to hotels every night looking for shelter because they don't have nowhere to go. Um, and it's just, you know, as today, I ride past and I see all the tents in Tent City. There's a guy that lives literally like 3 blocks from me, and he lives in a tent. And for at least I know the past 9 years, he has been in this tent, and he hasn't been able to get out of this tent. And it's been 9 years. So, through all the rain, through all the sleet, through all the snow, I mean, unbearable conditions. I mean, it was hard for me to live in a house with no power, let alone outside in the temperature. Um, and it's hard because you don't have nowhere to go. You don't have nobody to turn to. So here I am. I have this kid, and he's looking at me like, you know, Daddy, where are we gonna go? Or Daddy, what are we gonna do? And I had no answers for him, not one. So the only thing I knew to do was put my trust in God. And through the grace of God, I met Joe, and I met Reverend Glancy and Reverend Shipme, and they helped me along the way. It's been very challenging. It's been rough, but through the whole process, I just learned to always keep my head up, and no matter what my situation looks like, I always have to see the end result. And my end result has always looked better than what I see forming around me. Um, and so now, me and my son, we're in a 1 bedroom apartment, and we moved from the hotel to this 1 bedroom apartment. So for like the families that are in hotels, it costs about $250 a week or maybe more to live in a hotel. So it's cheaper to live in an apartment than it is a hotel. So for families that are in a hotel, if they don't get like a lump sum of money or a tax refund or something, they're never going to get out of that hotel. And if they don't come up with the money for that hotel, then they're back to the same process.
Thank you so much for sharing, Antonio. Um, One of the things I was hoping that you could add was what happened that started the spiral effect that ended up with you experiencing homelessness?
Okay, so like I said, my son was born to the state, and when I was trying to fight for custody for him, I was on my way to church, and I got some tickets. So I had to pay the tickets, but I also had to pay for classes in order to get custody of my son. And I couldn't pay for the tickets and pay for the classes to gain custody of my son. So I chose to pay for the classes for my son. But because of that, I lost my license, and I haven't had any license since I've had my son. So he's 13 now, and I've had him since he was 2. So that's how long I haven't had any license. I mean, I'm a painter, so I mean I have to drive to people's houses every day, and I still drive, and I still don't have license. But that's what caused it. So for someone who's a painter, and I lose my transportation, well, I mean everything is just a domino effect, and it goes down, and there's no getting back up once you hit that bottom, because there's no programs, there's no systems that actually help um, or transition from being homeless to stable. There, I don't know any. I haven't came across any that I can see that has the transition from being homeless to being stable. Um, and I think that's one of the things that we need, just something that's definitely concrete, that definitely works.
Mhm. So now that you are in stable housing, do you still struggle with getting the other things that you need to take care of you and your son?
Well, I mean, I still don't have childcare, but I mean, as a single father, I just, that's one of those things. I just had to have a conversation with my son, like, you know, this is what we have to do. I make sure he has a phone, and I just go to work, and I call him, and just hope and pray everything is okay. But without childcare, if he was 5 or 6, then I wouldn't be able to do this. I would have to stay at home with him, and if I stay at home, I don't work because there's no childcare, and then I hit the same problem again.
Yeah.
But
Well,
because he's old enough, and that's the only reason.
mhm. If you could change one thing about the housing situation here in Charlotte, what would that be?
um okay, so when I was going through the custody battle, they had what they call a service plan that you had to complete. So when I completed the first half of my service plan, they gave me visitation. I completed the second part of my service plan, they gave me overnights for my son. When I completed the third part of my service plan, then I gained custody. And I think that's what we need, a actual service plan that transitions. That's what we need. So when you're in a tent, or if you're on the street and you have nothing to look forward to, I mean, there's no way to look but down, because you have nothing to look up to. There is nothing that's that's concrete, that's going to help this to say, we're here for you, or we have your back. I mean, if it wasn't for you know Joel and Reverend Shipman and Reverend Glency, I honestly don't know, where me and my son would be. I mean, he might even be back in the system right now. There was no family that I could depend on.
Well, your son is definitely lucky to have you. And we truly appreciate you sharing part of your story with us. I wish we had more time.